Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of the shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So, a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Moon Harvest, Amish Earther, Naughty Thumbnails, Mitch Kennedy, Original D-Rose, Rod, The Name's Burley, Twad Wazzle, Jason Cornsby, Christoph Fournier, Flat Earth Travolta, J Mel's 24, Unamento, M, Iron 26, Endless, Flat Earth Sage, Golden McKinnon, Retro Bill, More Books, Fibre Oats, Michael Kahn, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Mel B Styles, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Rob W, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Nealands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, Tina Baker, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
Like, we could tear into them.
Oh, I thought this was being recorded. I thought I heard someone from Discord.
What's that?
I thought I heard someone from Discord earlier. I thought this was appropriate pre-show talk, really. Back off us.
Are you picking up on the fact I've announced that I'll be recording? I'm going, oh, I thought we were recording anyway. No.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't really change. Sometimes I pick my words more carefully if I know I'm being recorded, but normally I try and be the same no matter what.
Well, you're not regularly on the panel. I'm not being rude, but it's one of those things that you just kind of you forget about. Unless I'm not suggesting this either about you, Paul, but unless you've kind of want to develop a persona, an online persona, that is to say you've got certain things that you don't necessarily want of your person or of your personality to reach a public, forum, which is fine.
Not really. I just don't have one. Or the one I have is the only one I have.
That's not true. I know you well enough to know that's not true. Right. But okay, fair enough. But some people are like that. I would like to think my persona is quite closely exactly the same or as close as I can keep it to what I'm like. I mean, that isn't ever true. No matter what you are, you're always defined as an actor on YouTube, and you have, by definition, even if you use your own name, still got a persona and will do exactly as you just described, which is to say, even if it's subconsciously, you're picking your words more carefully because you know that they could be represented back to you at some point, right?
Yeah, I am trying to make an effort to be more positive and not slip into any of those problems I was talking about myself. So going forward, I hope to just stick to the arguments and no name calling, whether it be ad hom or not.
Indeedy. Exciting times. Turned XMP back on today. Very exciting, eh?
Yes, absolutely.
For most people, I say.
What's XMP? Hold on. What's that?
Extreme memory profile, Neil. Extreme.
Oh, okay.
No, basically.
Yeah, and I'm hoping with the with the Rumble thing that you can just need to run one more stream. I'm hoping that wouldn't be too taxing on the system because it uses a little bit more CPU and maybe a little bit of RAM, but you don't have to render two streams when you send out to two locations.
It won't make any difference, right? Well, I was just ignorant when I was saying that last time. I'm like, oh, I've put on, I think it was Gilded at that particular time, and I'm like, Gilded causes it to crash. It's too much on the nonsense. It just wasn't ever stable, right? So yeah, you can push it into the instability by loading a program. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what I've been doing over the last week or two is I already knew where the high levels of stability were. In other words, if you're pushing the computer to the raggedy edge, how much voltage does it need? I already knew that through about a year of testing. But ever since it's been nice and cool and not overheating, what would be happening is it would crash in standby or crash under a low load. Now, I researched it and found out there's this thing called load line calibration, which kind of tilts how little or much on an axis or on a fulcrum point or whatever you want to call it. It's like a Z shape that's tilting. So you can have a bit more voltage when it's using less power and a bit less when it's using more, and so on and so forth. You can kind of tilt this. And I was like, I can't be asked to learn about load line calibration. I just don't want to do it, right? So I'm like, okay, what's the alternative? The alternative is like just continue to consider it as though it's being stress test when you're running it at low, pull, whatever, when your wife's watching Netflix, or there's just iTunes running, or it's just in standby waiting to be, move the mouse and everything turns on. Well, in those states, I just thought, well, I'll just continue testing as though I'm stress testing it, but without giving it much thought until it does crash or it shows an anomaly, and then up the voltage. So that's what I did over the last week. So over the curry we just had, Craig was like, is it all stable now? I was like, not for a couple of days, or for a day it has been. Not telling him the full what I'm telling you now, which won't take long, I promise. But it's just following the same procedure, but slowly, incrementally increasing the voltage and decreasing the power I give the chip until eventually it's reached a point where I'm like, okay, well, it hasn't crashed in standby now, or it hasn't twitched during playing iTunes or something similar. It's completely stable. And it's been like that for 2 or 3 days. So I'm like, now I can finally turn XMP back on. Now, realistically, I should have done it the other way around. The only problem is that if I start at 0, it will overheat, and then I'm back to the chasing my own tail to figure out what's causing that. Whereas this way, it's always cool when I'm moving on to the next thing. So I know that it's not going to be unstable because of whatever I'm doing next is going to be because it's already too hot. So I'm at that point now. It's kind of the last thing to switch on. And I've been really modest. I've turned on the 5600 profile at 5200. So I've been very, very modest. And it's because of Neil. In the back of my mind, I think it was Neil or Arwin, one of them was saying, just be really, really modest while you're doing it. Whereas typically you find the limit and then stop. You're like, no, be a bit more modest and start lower, or push it lower than maybe you might have stopped at. So I've had that in mind each time I've done it and taken a little bit longer.
Owen might have suggested you put everything back to stock at one point as well. So
that doesn't work.
Not to take everything you did.
That doesn't work. So the problem at stock is that especially it's memory that's the problem at stock. So if you set it to no XMP or don't tweak the voltage at stock, it still falls over on blue screens. It shows memory instability issues. So sometime about 3 weeks ago, that was my starting point, is try and get everything at stock. And the CPU overheats, and that causes the memory to have instability as the board gets hotter and hotter and hotter, even with the fans running. So that stock doesn't work either on the memory. It just doesn't have enough voltage to stay stable when it gets hot, unfortunately. Now, that's not the fault of the memory. That's the fault of the case being just generally a bit of a hot box. So stock doesn't work for various different reasons unless you absolutely blast it with the fans, which I've done. But now I know that that's all stable. I can now give it a bit more voltage, which will retain its stability even when it's a bit hotter. But it's not overheating. So I'm like, looked at my wife today. I daren't say, oh, I've got it all stable. Like, I was turned on the XMP, crossed my fingers, knowing where it has crashed in the past, and got straight to where I knew it would work, and it did. And it booted into it. I'm like, I shouldn't be surprised. I've tested this about 500 times, but it just started, and I'm like, okay, great. I know what CPU voltage won't crash in standby, and it's definitely higher than it would be under load anyway, because it'll work at a much lower voltage under a high load. So I'm like, okay, it can't really not be stable now, can it? But it's one other thing that I've now got to spend a week looking at and maybe concerning myself with. But I don't think so. Having tested it extensively in the past, shouldn't have anything to worry about. But I'll just keep an eye on it. But it's the last thing to be switched back on, after, like you say, trying to retain stock things with slightly high voltages and things like that. Anyway, there you go. I'm quite pleased that it's not fallen over already, frankly.
Nathan, I got a question for you.
Yes.
I noticed that if I miss your re-up of a show, I used to be able to see the chat. Now you can't anymore. It's just gone. That's it.
What? Which show?
Any show, any of the uncut and after shows. Like, say I miss it and I go to put it on, I don't see any of the chat, and there's no option to get it.
The chat after it's premiered doesn't appear?
Nope.
Okay, maybe that could be my fault. I could have accidentally unchecked a box that's supposed to allow you to see the chat after it's finished on the replay. I don't know. I'll have to have a look at that, Neil. Thank you for letting me know. But back to your question, Paul, because I went off on a long segue, because I wanted to. Was when you're like giving me extra programs to run, it should be able to pile on programs indefinitely and just slow down. It should never fall over just because I've got an extra program running. That's absurd. It should just slow down.
I think 2 panels is ideal, though. I don't think you need any more.
No. Oh, I don't have Element. Is that the other panel that you suggested? Is that what Flatsoid uses?
Yes, and that was originally the idea, was to change what we're using now to Element, because you can level people up. It lowers people's bit rate if they have a poor signal, nil, and then it keeps everyone else at a good rate. And then also people can jump in and out whenever they want. So say when you leave, like Elijah or Chocolate, if they haven't been able to join, they can just join us later on whenever they want.
Okay, I'll transition. I've got 3 things to do. I've got to set up a multicasting functionality, a different platform, and then I'll transition this last. So I'll start with BitChute or whatever it's called this week. I don't want to be rushed, but you've been telling me this for about a year and a half.
Yeah, what I thought was the best things to do, and then if you do them and when you do them is completely up to you. It's not.
Yeah, well, I also feel there might be some imposition on you or Tinfoil Hatman, who's been singing from the same hymn sheet. When I spoke to him last, or when I met with him over the weekend, he's saying the same things, but it means that I can ask one or other of you for help if I haven't got the vaguest idea where to even start. So there's no with it just being you making these suggestions, it would just become an imposition on you, because I'd have just been chasing back and going, how do I do this then? Can you sit with me for 10 minutes? And you're like, well, actually, no, I have a life.
The thing of that is I enjoy this stuff. It's like a back office is like a hobby for me. I really do enjoy learning how to use different technologies and things. So I'm more than happy to help whenever you need it.
I'm glad to hear it, but as you can probably tell, after knowing me for a couple of years, I hate it. I absolutely hate it, and it causes me so much stress. I don't know why. My anxiety level goes up massively when it comes to anything to do with altering stuff on the show, and I end up chasing my tail and becoming obsessive about it. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing. So with the sound, there was a crackle that I chased down for like 2 years. Eventually figured out what it is after changing all sorts of pieces of equipment incorrectly at great expense. But sometimes when you want to fix something, that's what you end up doing. It's the same with this computer.
Yeah, well, in the new year, I'm starting a new channel with Michael Kahn and Paula Bible U. And so for that, I need to upgrade my restream, and that will give me the ability to let you have a seat as well, so you can use it to restream to a lot of locations. The reason I suggest using my restream is because you need to pay for using Rumble, because that counts as a custom real-time messaging protocol rather than the standard on restream and available. And then we would be able to send the show via Restream could restream it to another, say, 3 or 4 locations. Because I think X is a good option, as well as Rumble, and maybe even something like Twitch, maybe. I don't know.
If we do one at a time, we can, because each one, as I would, regardless if I was going via your Restream account, I would still want to go through the rigmarole of physically checking that I'm not breaking any terms of service for either YouTube or them by restreaming to them or multicasting. Like I said last time, so if we just add one at a time, but getting the system in place first to do so. The other thing I want to do, I don't know, is it's similar to updating G+. Number one, that'll save me a tenner or whatever it is a month. To not Gilded. We were talking about a minute ago. What was it called?
What, Element or
Element? Yes, the one that Flatsoid uses. Upgrading to Element. The other thing that I want to try, because of what Discord is some of the other servers. So several people have been saying to me, why aren't you going into Flat Earth 24/7 Discord? And I don't actually have a reason why I'm not. Now, there was a time that it's like, no, it's fundamentally important that the science versus pseudoscience server gets built up, and I want to be behind it 100%. It's pretty well established now after, what is it, 5 years? You know, I don't think it's going to matter too much if I start going into other people's rooms to do the same thing, because there is going to be a different variety of people in there. Obviously, I'm going to have to check with the server owner first that they're happy for me to do so. And in the same vein, you and Paula have now set up your own server on Discord. So there's a few different avenues that are being set up internally to sort of change and expand how the show gets produced in the first instance. But at the same time, it sounds like, you know, with the help of you and Tinfoil Hatman, I'll be able to expand the reach of the audience as well, not just the internal discussion group, but the external watchers. So those two things are going to be happening simultaneously over the next couple of weeks, hopefully, which is good, right?
Yeah. And I mean, getting the show out to as many people as possible is the main thing. And with 24/7, there are quite a few established people on there, even gold and gold pluses, who I would say are more still back to the 2015, 2016 arguments, you know, like telling the ballers what they should believe, that sort of thing. They're definitely not keeping up with the flat earth debate. So being on there would really help them as well, because they're obviously more likely to join if we had a category on 24/7. And then we could tutor them up as well, because they're having the most interactions with new people, as far as I could see, because they've got discord.gg/flat earth. And that's the one that shows up when you search, really. So they get more interactions with genuine newcomers.
Well, that's something I want to talk about on today's show, actually. Not just in line with what we've just been discussing about the expansion internally and externally of flat earth debate, but the expansion of the notion that we are in a battle with the Feast of Nonsense. So when you say 2015, 2016 arguments, what I hear is they're assisting our opponent in discussion or our opponent in debate by peddling false dichotomy arguments that assist our opponent in debate. Am I correct?
I'm not sure it's still a policy, but if you remember when I went on there and I got interviewed for my flat earth role, this guy called Sheepdog Legend, he was expecting me to remember all the circumference and all of the
Right.
all of that stuff. And we reviewed it, actually. I'll see if I can find the clip. It was a while ago, probably a year ago. And it just seemed like, you know, how the David Weiss presentations normally go.
Mm-hmm.
They're going on that basis where he's answering all the questions for them and presenting them with things which he didn't have to. And he gets an opportunity to present people with how the earth is measured flat, and he can prove it. Yet he doesn't do that. He just sort of says, I believe the earth is flat. And that's a terrible way of going about things.
And the globe should be going at 24,000 miles, blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
That's David Weiss, all right.
Well, that's a mission. That's something to expand with, isn't it? You know, what's your purpose in wanting to expand your reach? Well, we're in a battle with the Feast of Nonsense rhetoric that we've been dealing with for many years, and why we need to educate the people if they want to know Earth is flat. And that brings me lastly on to how I want to do that. The methodology or the conduit to do that would be the newest or latest hashtag. Now, you named Flat Earth Debate Back Office in this tone, which is to say measured flat Earth. So we're going to be combating the belief that has been steadfast in our community since 2014, 2015, however long you are in this community. And me talking to the audience in that light, that we've progressed now. It is proven Earth is flat. It's measured that way. And you should know this. Those should be your first lines of attack if you want to win and convince someone Earth's flat. Show them how it's measured flat. As for dealing with the false dichotomies of the arguments, that's something that's a work in progress, and we will constantly strive to achieve that. And people who do tune into our show will pick up on that when they learn about logical fallacies and how not to get trapped by them. But the overarching point that anybody moving forward in this subject should, sounds so arrogant, should take forth is proof of flat Earth. That's what we were asked for when we were totally green to the subject. Where's your flat Earth proof? Okay, here's my flat Earth proof. Earth's measured flat. that's where this should tail. It started the circle there. It's now a revolution, but not with us not being able to answer it and being shut down into some corner. We should expand out with this information. I feel it's more worthy than the stuff that's being, perpetuated or prevalent within the anti-flat Earth or global community that wants to mock us. So that's an important message that we need to drive forward. We can prove it now. Could we prove? Would I be this relaxed 5 years ago? Probably not, because deep down I knew we couldn't prove it, or I didn't have a satisfactory enough basis to tell someone that I met that I could prove it. I could infer it, and I definitely believed it. But we've advanced beyond that now, right?
Black Swan was a revelation. Celestial navigation was a nail in the coffin.
Right.
Did everyone read my comment that I put on my Discord? Because I was asked a question about what does it mean, measured flat Earth? Because it's a new server, and I called it Measured Flat Earth, the Discord server that Polar and Divergent Droids helped me run. And I put my response in Master B, but no one said anything. So it's either very correct or very wrong.
Well, read it to us. Where is it?
I'm just scrolling up now. I can't see it.
Right. It's a screenshot from Discord, so it's sort of grey, I think.
Sent to me as a claim. Does it ever? No. Sorry.
The question was, can I ask a silly question? What does it mean to have the Earth measured flat? Something along to that effect. Let's see if I can. I put, in celestial navigation, we use a sextant to measure elevation angles. In this example, we are laying on a raft with our eyeballs on at sea level. You sight the horizon in your horizon mirror and sway from side to side to fix your baseline of your measurement. This establishes vertical, as this is always perpendicular to the horizontal, the horizon, and the aspect of the surface of the water is horizontal. Angles are two lines raised meeting at a vertex. Elevation angles are always measured from the surface. In this case, the surface is the sea. When you measure elevation angles, you minus from 90, the star's zenith. You then have measured a right triangle. Therefore, Earth is measured and must be flat for celestial navigation to work.
You could be paid as an editor for a celestial navigation book to write the forenote on how it works.
No doubt.
That was exceptional. That was so concise and included every element that it would not only improve on the current rhetoric of I believe Earth's flat, but prove it categorically, but describe it to the point where someone with a bare bones understanding would understand and recognise that as a good summary of what you do to find your position at sea. Now, you haven't got onto the line of positioning or taking the 3 stars, but prior to that, in terms of what we need, that was about as concise as it could get, Paul. Kudos.
Yeah, well, props obviously to 10th Man and everyone for chipping in and making it such a good argument and helping everyone, well, a lot of people to understand it. But obviously, there's still some work to do if people can sit in the Discord, not every day, but most days, and still not really, they still can't envision it in their mind, I guess. Everyone learns differently. So perhaps there's another way we could, perhaps if we go over it again, maybe even make a video to help some of the people who watch on YouTube. Well, I'm not sure how many of them really understand it, because I don't really see people making the argument, certainly not on Discord.
Well, I'm going to be titling lots of these videos. Well, maybe it'll only take a week. Who knows? I doubt it. With that very sentiment, we can prove it now. I'm going to nip off and press a couple of buttons.
I saw that whole thing in my mind as you were laying it out, Paul. Perfect.
Yeah, I didn't want to get into too much of the details of site reduction tables and all those things, because I thought I was overcomplicating. I was just trying to explain why we can prove it's measured flat, and then I was hoping to find a good video to lay it out in the visuals for him. I think there's a video by Tom Cunliffe that might be quite good, because he wrote a book called Celestial Navigation. So I just got to find the best video to recommend, and I was going to reply to him with that as well. So it might help if he can see it laid out,
I saw it laid out as you were reading. I saw it laid out in my mind. Good job.
Yeah, I remembered QE saying, well, I should have probably used rubber ducky, but, eyeball on the water is the example you must use, because then they can't get into what they call dip correction, but height of eye correction, as Brian likes to always refer to it, because then they can't get out of it. You're using the sea as your adjacent, and you cannot have a curved adjacent.
Correct.
Game over.
Rubber ducky is QEs. You did good without adding that. I like eyeballs on the water. That's what it means.
Yeah, well, you can actually lie on a raft, or even, I think, maybe a rowboat. It's just low enough so the angle isn't too far off. You still won't be perfect, but you're still measuring angles, because that's what you need to do. And you can't measure elevation angles on a globe. This is such a silly idea. I'm pretty sure someone told me that people were going around Discord, maybe someone like Bacon, for example, using celestial navigation as a globe proof at one point, maybe early on. And that's very amusing to think about it now.
Yeah, it's an impossibility because there are no horizons on a globe.
And really, I mean, as the horizon is horizontal, because we see in angles, and the dissolution point is what that actually is. And you're seeing the surface of the water, which is horizontal.
How come nobody ever picked up on that? Like years and years just saying horizon. Look at the horizon. And it's derived from horizontal. How did it not click?
Well, the whole thing's like a social engineer and mind trick, isn't it? I mean,
Yep.
Nothing that they say is real, yet they've convinced, I don't know what you say, half the world's population, because there are a lot of other countries that don't accept globes, I think, I'm not sure, but Hindus, I think, maybe flat earth as well, and a lot of Muslims would be flat earthers, so. And also Chinese people, I mean, just because the Chinese government says that they're going up into space doesn't mean the Chinese people believe them. So I would say it's probably 50-50 anyway, and we're mostly talking about the West if they say like 10 or 20%. But I keep speaking to people who say that whenever they mention flat Earth, they don't get any extreme reactions anymore. Michael was telling me he went witnessing, and he told everyone there that he was a flat earther, and none of them seemed to object or be put off by it.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, shouldn't be surprising. I mean, Genesis being a geocentric flat Earth book.
Right.
Although you tried telling Greg Locke that.
I was just going to thanks for reminding me. I couldn't remember it until you brought his name up. That's how strong what you call it, social engineering or brainwashing was, that you have a guy standing right there with another guy, and the guy that's denying the Bible throws the other guy out and calls him a Bible denier.
Yeah, but you see, he's the pastor of the Global Vision Bible Church, so he's kind of stuck.
It's sad because, I mean, you just can't get around Joshua chapter 10. Can't get around it. My son tried to get around that nonsense. He goes, I'll tell you why. And the nonsense that he spewed was not even worth repeating. But and in that case, I agree with Adam. It's like you either got to say that you don't believe what the Bible says because God can't lie. Joshua did not say, earth, stay still.
Well, there's lots in its face of the earth, face of the waters. It was void and without form.
Right.
There's just so many.
And why would he bid the earth to stay still when it's written that it's established and cannot be moved? So the logical thing to do to win a battle is to bid the sun to stay still in the sky. And if we read Psalm 19, it speaks about the circuit of the sun, how it comes out of its chamber like a strong man to run a race. Man, that was something, man.
Did you manage to make it write an email to Dean Odell yet?
Nah, this weekend I was swamped. Christmas and struggling to try to get. I don't want to talk about it.
You'll get through it. No pressure.
Hey, I was going to ask a second ago. I was listening when my kids were yelling, Paul. When they're trying to go to dip correction. What's the line that they're drawing out from their eye that's horizontal? What's it called?
A line of sight.
Eye
No,
level.
no, line of sight is to something.
Eye level.
Yeah. So they can't have level be a straight line and a curved line. See what I mean?
Well, if everything's refracted, then all of their lines would be bent, wouldn't they? So
It's no. What he's
No.
referring to is the idea that when you point out that you've got an eye level or a sea level or any level, they'll appoint some, I can't remember, Merriam-Webster definition that says, well, no, that level is actually moving to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth, so level's curved. But what John's saying is, no, as a get around, you establish level as level with two things in the Earth curve maths: surface level and eye level. Well, for those things to work in their maths, they can never infer that level isn't level, when they do, because that's their last retreat. That's the, what is it? The, I forgot what they call it in Saving Private Ryan. The Alamo, right? That's where they go. Level's not level. Level's curved. All right. What's this? Eye level. Is that curved? Does that bust your maths?
yeah, the trouble is I can't think like that. It's just so illogical.
Right.
It hurts my brain.
Right. You can't get to a dip angle correction if level is curving, because you need level to be a horizontal to get a dip angle.
No, we never had a Simon Dan moment where someone was coming to us and saying you and your reference planes are ruined. But that would have been quite cool.
Yeah, most of them are too scared now, aren't they? Seems. Well, I don't think Simon Dan debates anyone, does he? Probably a good reason for it, watching his videos. I see them pop up when I search for videos for the show, but I don't like suggesting them because, they're terrible, aren't they?
Simon Dan one's appealing
Don't want
to
to
the
give them reviews, yeah.
lowest common denominator in terms of audience retention, I guess.
He gets like 35,000 views on a short, though, sometimes.
I'm sure. Very
Because he's
popular.
been, helped. People are being helped to find him. Whereas the other day, Brian was asking about finding one of his videos. And if you put in Brian's and then the exact title of his video, it does not show up. He's as shadow banned as anyone I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah, we're as censored as we possibly could be. I love it when people like Simon Dan gloat about that. Oh, look how well I'm doing. You're like, yeah, every time someone searches Flat Earth, they find Professor Dave Explains, you, Dave McKeegan. That's what they find. So it's like they're searching for our specialist subject, which is, strictly speaking, their specialist subject, just the antithesis of what we claim. But they get all the views directed at them, and they're shocked and shaken when feel it's worth gloating when they get that. Like, yeah, of course you do. Where do you think I appear on the lists? I'm covering the same subject, but I'm the one with the tramp stamp because I'm affirming it in the positive. You're decrying it in the negative. Therefore, you're the one that's going to get all of the searches pointed at you. Shocking, isn't it? Wow, praiseworthy.
Yeah, it's almost like a rich kid talking with a self-made millionaire, and the rich kid bragging about how he got his money. It's got a
yes, exactly, exactly.
How far did you get into the video on Friday? The Sarah Garvey one, I think. I wasn't listening.
Fair way through. Why did you want to cover a bit more of it? Did it get more juicy?
Well, what I said is that it started off as flat Earth, but as it was saying conspiracy theories, I didn't know what it was going to go into. So I didn't know if it was safe for you, because even though it's on YouTube, it isn't necessarily safe for you to show on YouTube if they start talking about other conspiracy theories. So if you thought that was enough, then I'll look for something else.
Yeah, I felt we'd covered it. It was a bit, I don't know. It wasn't the best video. Because
It was a bit
covering
strange.
rudimentary stuff that was wrong, and it was helpful in the regards that we could point out their general ideas of our flat earth community and the conspiracies, and the flat earther was there peddling the usual nonsense, which is going to be the vibe of today's live show. So from that perspective, very useful.
Yeah, well, I had a good number of views, and it's a new video, so I just sort of picked that one. You have to trawl for all of the Sci-Man Dan stuff. He's uploading a lot of stuff. And, well, I call him Sci-Fi Dan, more accurate.
I don't blame him, though. I mean, if I had the algorithm pointing at me, I'd be uploading a shed ton too, because I'd be raking it in. Now, as it goes, I'm uploading a shed ton probably a hell of a lot more than Dan, because I need to, to keep the lights on, which is a very different circumstance. But, who can blame him? I'm not going to knock Dan for being favoured in the algorithm. You're like, I'm a YouTuber too. I want that algorithmic love to have come my way. The fact that it's come his rather than mine in my subject is unfortunate, but I'm not going to begrudge him. Like, good for you. In terms of what YouTube wants, they want people to decry flat earth, and you're providing that. So you found the right niche. Now, I morally can't change my niche to favour that algorithmically. That's unfortunate for me, but I'm not going to decry Dan for that. As a YouTuber, good on you, mate. Good for you. Good. If you're succeeding in the way you are, it means that one day maybe I will.
Well, if there was the thing is, you're not really a flat Earth believer. It's just there's no points to be made for globe. If people have a point to be made for the globe, they could come here and make it. They just can't anymore.
Because they have the option. Do you want to be right or do you want to be wealthy?
Struggling today, huh?
Hello, good afternoon.
I was putting a drink down I just mistimed during the intro then as I was having a sip of my Coke. That was all that was. Good start to the week. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge that's a horizon formerly known as Earth curvature?
Yes, the boat was on land.
Are you referring to last week's show with Ruhif?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be nice if it's 2017 and we all inferred a physical geometric sphere edge horizon at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. Alas, Black Swan, 2020, almost 4 years old now.
Well, doesn't the dip angle correction increase as you raise in altitude? So wouldn't that be proof that Earth's a sphere?
No, it'd be proof Earth's flat. The dip angle correction would be with respect to surface level or eye level. The ground when making that correction will be parallel with whatever you're referencing to do that dip correction. If you're referencing that to your eye level, then, well, number one, if you were doing it to the eye level, you'd be probably doing it with a bubble sextant, so there'd be no need to make a dip correction. But if you were doing it at sea with a sextant and making the correction to put your eyes effectively on the water with that correction, then you're going to be referencing the surface level to do the angle measurement that you need it for. So how does that in any way imply or infer a sphere when it's only useful for measuring angles and things of that nature? Establishing a horizontal plane of reference, in other words. That's proving Earth's flat.
Well, the flat earthers who believe it's flat say that the horizon is your eye level.
I see. This is something we're going to have to correct. So this is going to be the main theme of today's show, although it's going to have whatever the last show was in terms of title and thumbnail. That can only be corrected after we've made the show because they're live and we don't know necessarily what we're going to be talking about until we do. So in the meantime, that's what the thumbnail is, but it isn't going to match. So that's always the case, by the way. Anyway, moving forward in this subject, we have a battle on our hands with what I'm going to call Feast of Nonsense rhetoric. And we have progressed to the point where we can prove it's flat now. When we were early in this subject, when we first arrived, we were asked, what's your flat earth proof? And very, very seldom did anybody who was out there provide any. They offered up their beliefs. They offered up their debunkings for heliocentrism. Some of them were good. Some of them weren't so good. Some of them have stuck around. But what people didn't do is prove it's flat. Until very recently. Now, there are your exceptions to the rule. And Quantum Eraser's had a whole bunch of flat earth proofs on his website for quite some time. But in terms of the standard, proving Earth's flat with a practical application of a flat earth measurement, we can do that now. Therefore, we need to expand out to all of the people who may have deserted us because they didn't like the way we spoke on the show. That's something else. One of my moderators is displeased with the way I have been with various different reaction videos, and I need to contact that moderator to set that straight, because I am very proud of my choice of moderators in this show. And if one of them is displeased, I see them as my representative, and therefore if they're displeased, I'm displeased, regardless of if their displeasure is directed at me. That's something I will have to correct, because my moderators are quite literally a representation of several thousand people in terms of their attitudes and opinions. Therefore, they're my moderator, and they are, I gauge my audience with them in terms of how they are displeased. But it means I've got a link to somebody that can be seen as representative of a lot of other people when they are displeased, to see if I can correct things that may not be correct about the show in terms of how it's presented. It's all a work in progress, right? Anyway, we have to defeat the Feast of Nonsense rhetoric that has been around since day one for everybody who's currently here. I don't think there are any exceptions. I can't think of anybody who was here before the first wave, Math Powerland notwithstanding. Well, because of that, most of the stuff that goes out into the mainstream, if you want to call it that, or even into the low level of YouTube at the high end, is 2014, 15, 16, 17 garbage arguments that don't prove it's flat. Well, we need to get it out to our own kind in some way or another, and expand it out from here forth to new people with the right arguments, ones that they can take back to their loved ones, where they don't end up in a row because they're being told that they just don't have an open mind enough because they don't understand how this complicated orbital motion doesn't really work in reality, therefore Earth's flat. Most people get annoyed with that, and that's probably why people have fell out with loved ones. Well, as a route from here, if you understood it to be measured flat and you could just tell a loved one that very calmly, if they didn't accept it, that's on them. You're not asking them to believe anything. Well, that's where you have less arguments, and people might be indignant at their own disbelief at the fact that Earth's measured flat, but that's all it'll be, as opposed to their indignance at you forcing your belief onto them, which is what has happened until now. So we have an obligation, I feel, in this community, which we are in whether we bloody well like it or not. It's unfortunate, that's just how it is, to pass on the better information. Say the time is up. We don't need to express our beliefs anymore. I have no belief in flat Earth. None. Earth is flat. That's how it's dealt with. That's how it's measured. And we can prove it. So let's be a bit more confident about that fact and stand by it moving forward. Now, there are going to be people who are left in our wake, potentially, that do not want to move on from the Feast of Nonsense arguments that they have familiarised themselves with. That is unfortunate. But they will be, quite literally, left behind. Because moving forward, proving Earth is flat has a much better ring to it. Any comments? No? Shout out to Tony Whitcomb for the super chat. Says, just a thank you to all on the panel. Well, they can get the thanks. I will keep the money, Tony. I am really poor. Thank you for the super chat. No, I really do sincerely appreciate it. Any evidence? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. We have got some comments. Go ahead.
I was going to say a lot of it is going to be to dealing with the red herrings that are fired back when you point out how it's measured, like the one I brought up at the beginning of the show. It's a red herring in and of itself, but it deals with a false claim that a flat earther is making who doesn't understand, and they play upon that to try to prove a globe, but it doesn't prove a globe.
That will be, in essence, part of the advanced stuff that we do get or stay into as we're discussing stuff on Flat Earth debate moving forward. That is to say, it's not the simplest thing in the world to understand how a glober is putting forth a flat Earth measurement to assert that Earth is proven spherical, and how a flat earther will often also offer a flat Earth measurement and then potentially juxtapose it with a globe Earth measurement that's the same, but fails for the flat earther for whatever reason, leaving a flat Earth measurement proving a globe in false dichotomy. Now, those are quite advanced arguments to understand that you've fallen victim to if you do fall victim to them. But if you were keeping up to date with the flat Earth debate, You'll learn about fallacies and you'll learn about false dichotomies as part of that process. So it's not necessarily the case that understanding how Earth is measured flat will leave you with an ability to suddenly overcome all globe claimants' positions that they put forth to you. There's a lot more to it. But what it does do is cement you in a place where you don't have to fret and stress and worry about whether or not you're wrong. You can know you're right, and if you choose to investigate beyond knowing Earth is measured flat, that's up to you. If you choose to figure out how you've been deceived into being on a ball if you're a Western world occupant, then that's on you. You can do that too. But you don't need to anymore. There was a very definite requirement to move forward constantly through Feast of Nonsense garbage to hopefully find a really good silver bullet proof. That's what we used to get asked for. Where's your silver bullet proving flat Earth? Well, it's measured flat. Now you know. Don't need to go into any of the conjectures about what the sun might be, what the sky might be, or the mapping of the ground that's beneath your feet in terms of how those maps that already come to pass have been manipulated and gerrymandered. They've been done so by way of an established grid system that was measured off a flat plane. Once you know these facts, you know Earth's flat. Not believe, not require an open mind about 9/11, but know it's measured flat. And that's really all you require. Your intentions to debate family members who insist that they have a gravity force that's not a force that you can think of as a force that went out of date 108 years ago and has been replaced by pseudo force space-time. You'll learn that too here. But ultimately, knowing it's measured flat should be the predominant point that we move forward with, because that's the most important thing, isn't it? Relinquishing people of their flat Earth belief may or may not happen. We may just leave people in our wake in this regard moving forward from this day. Bold words, Nathan. Indeed.
Hear, hear.
But let's move on with another housekeeping question we might cover of the video today. There's something I do want to cover from YouTube's terms of service that I thought was quite amusing. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety? Okay then. Well, that's good to know. We'll just move on without even having to know. Nobody's going to claim stars are rotating. Fine. We'll move on. Okie dokie. I read this in part of the terms of service and I thought it was very amusing. Now, it contextually has a point around it, which is to say that there's a prevalence of people who are literally producing AI content with artificial intelligence, either for the script, for the videography itself, the stills, whatever it may be. People are using AI to produce videos. And YouTube want people to be aware that what's being presented may not necessarily be natural. It may be synthetic. And that could be better off disclaimed rather than people pumping out crap that's just been produced by a computer. To whatever extent they have had to interfere with that is a different matter, but this is the words that YouTube have to say of it. Over the coming months, we'll introduce updates that inform viewers when their content they're seeing is synthetic. Specifically, we'll require creators to disclose when they've created altered or synthetic content that is realistic, including using AI tools when creators upload content. We will have new options for them to select to indicate that it contains realistic, altered, or synthetic material. End quote.
Will that apply to NASA?
I hoped I didn't put the question out, and I haven't right up until this moment when I put this in the Skype chat. I thought, how many seconds will it be before someone asks about NASA? Because I don't want to be the first to say it. I want to see how quickly someone says, oh, right, so if we're watching something that is from a second law of thermodynamics violation, sky vacuum, couldn't possibly be real, had to be computer generated, will they disclose that? It's real because it looks so fake. I wonder if Starman would have to have that disclosure on it, because that's unequivocally not real. There is no Starman in a Tesla out in a sky vacuum that violates second law of thermodynamics. But would they have to tick that box in YouTube, I ask myself? I doubt it. One rule for thee and one rule for me. Shout out to Shatner's Bassoon. Up the FED panel, please share the show. I should have done that call to action. I do it in the intro, right? Thank you for the super chat. Any other comments on that? Man, I thought you were all warmed up in the pre-show. Is there something more nerve-wracking about being live, perhaps?
No, I think it's the shock of NASA having to put their images are altered. The idea that might be seeking in.
They do it anyway. I mean, back before I was a flat earther, I still am actually. I've just never bothered unsubscribing to Science at NASA. Close your ears, QE, if you're listening. Well, Science at NASA are like a subscription-based thing. Not subscription, like a newsletter type thing with emails and all that sort of stuff. And they update you when they've got a new video, like you'd expect, right? But just a bit more. But back when I was a globe believer, I was quite keen to see the images from space, the real photographs from space. And every single time I got a Science at NASA update email, and I'd go to their video or their website, wherever it is they were directing me to look at this information, I was always left with this really empty, hollow feeling because you never got anything real. And it was always fairly prominently disclaimed as not being real. You go and check. You know, you won't find that they've labeled up something that's clearly artificially generated by them as a rendered image or whatever they disclaim it as. It does always disclaim it. Now, relatively eagle-eyed me, I'm not. It's just that I trained in editing at college, and when I did, you notice things like the little Ashtons that flash up at the bottom and declare something that you may not necessarily pay too much attention to if you're overwhelmed with the, wow, look, a satellite flying around around Saturn, or whatever it is they're pretending to show you from outer space, a sky vacuum, violation of a law of nature, entropy. Well, it would disclaim it. So, in the same way that we have very little that we can actually pin on them as being claimed to be a picture of, say, Earth from space, there's only one, right? The original blue marble. That's the only one they're claiming is quote-unquote real. But other than that, you'd be very hard pushed to actually pin NASA to not disclaiming when they've faked these images. Now, when it comes to the ISS, I don't know, I'm not that avid a watcher of the ISS. I know they use green screens, and they're doing it to create the image of this bubbles in space or whatever it is that they're floating around, and then microphones pass back and forth in zero G while they're all hanging on high wire. Well, would that come under this category, would you suggest? Do they have to disclaim that that's synthetic because they've got green screens on the ISS? They may just say, yeah, we have got green screens on the ISS. It's really handy. You know, when we're doing videos and stuff. Wouldn't you? If you were a videographer, you're a YouTuber and you got a bloody green screen. Why wouldn't we? We're NASA. Why wouldn't it be on the, you know, that would be the kind of tact that they would take if you were to expose that sort of stuff. But like I say, would you have to disclaim it? And even if they did, would it be any more detrimental than the disclaimers that they give already? I would suggest not, believe it or not.
I think it's just interesting to see that they actually put it below their videos, like the tramp stamp on Flat Earth. That would be interesting to see NASA with that stamp.
It would be so carefully phrased as to not be detrimental to NASA in any way, shape, or form, more than it already is. Like I say, the only reason I can describe the hollow feeling I had every time I left a Science at NASA link was because it was disclaimed to not be real. I'm like, oh, this will be good. They've gone out with NASA have gone out with these cameras on this rocket or whatever they're doing. I'm like, great, there's cameras on it. We'll definitely get some footage. No footage, no footage, no footage. Oh, right, here's some footage. Disclaimed as being rendering. No footage, no footage. Another set of videography. All right, it's disclaimed as being an artist rendering. End of article. Oh. There's the hollow feeling again. This was well before I was a flat earther. But like I say, because you'd see it all disclaimed. You'd read the reference material that they give you for each image, and you go to it and you check what it was. And sometimes, like you say, or I didn't say, sometimes you might find that it doesn't necessarily disclaim, but there's a a well-cited link to where it's come from, and on that well-cited link, it'll really clearly document that it's not a real image. And you might think, okay, it's one step removed from them pretending that it's real on the front page of this article, but really they're not hiding it at all. It's one link in, and they've published the link to show you that it definitely isn't real. So like I say, I don't think it would be to NASA's detriment. They're already geared up for this. They're too smart.
Hey, well, with the one photo,
Hey, Brian.
with the one photo they do have, that was, since they consider sea level to be the beginning of space, wherever it was taken technically from space. So it's not a lie, right? Is that what you're getting at?
No, I'm getting at that they never provided anything that would be classed as being in the sky vacuum that wasn't disclaimed as being a rendering of some description. That's what I'm saying. So even if they have to disclaim on YouTube that they've got synthetic material in their material, you go and find me one where you can say unequivocally, they're saying this is real and it ain't. You won't find many examples of that. Now, yeah, we all know that there's a moon landing, but they're not publishing that tomorrow, are they? And, even if they were, they'd be saying, oh, yeah, it's absolutely real. Or maybe they wouldn't, I don't know. I would assume they're trying to bury that old crap stop motion animation and old backdrops that's from 50s technology. I would imagine that they're hoping that will fade into obscurity more and more as time passes. Memory hold.
Well,
but that's AI. You're not talking about AI. Oh, hold on a sec. But you're not talking about AI rendered technology at that point. You're talking about pre-AI and stuff like that. So they won't have to disclaim that stuff. Is my point.
Well, it's synthetic. The word's synthetic. Backdrops are synthetic.
The difference, I remember losing faith in NASA years and years and years before I ever came to this topic. So I remember a point coming, and I remember saying this distinctly to people. They would lost faith in them way before this, but I remember distinctly making a point to someone when the iPhone 5 was available. I said, and my father had one, and I said, if you can see this with the iPhone 5, you can video something this good with the iPhone 5. But yet the best at the time, if you go back to the type of footage that was coming out from NASA, was grainy black and white footage. I said, how come the best they can do with all their money is grainy black and white footage when an iPhone 5 is even better than what they're showing? Now, I wasn't saying they could use the iPhone 5 doing what they were claiming to do, but the point was that if the iPhone 5 can take video of this quality, then surely NASA can do better than a grainy black and white images of an astronaut or some nonsense. See, that it's easy for them to say, just on the point of the moon landing, it's easy to say that's real because it is real. It just didn't happen on the moon. They can say this image is real or this video is a real video. It just didn't happen where they say it happened. Like there's a photograph of a painting called the Blue Marble. That is a real photograph of a real painting. So technically, it is real. It's just not. It's not real where they say it was, or taken where they say it was.
Right. It seems like they're going after the AI rendered material, like CGI, things of that nature.
Yes, and that
They're not going to go after.
Yeah, I did disclaim that before already. That is contextually how it's wrapped around this particular paragraph. But nevertheless, there's plenty of what currently stands as being presented as out in space in the sky vacuum that's riddled with CGI and passed off as being real. Now, maybe that's the double bluff here. Well, it's not being disclaimed as being a CGI rendering of something synthetic, so therefore it's, maybe that's the standard that they're going for. It's useful if you've got somebody trained to understand that if it is CGI, it's disclaimed as CGI. Therefore, when something's popping up from the ISS and there's no disclaimer, well, it must be real then. If you can train your monkeys that way, maybe that's what they're going for. I don't know, and it's interesting from a perspective of a feast of nonsense regurgitator to come at their NASA angle with, oh, right, you're not disclaiming that this is CGI and we can see there's a green screen and this is how the green screen fades out and the man in the background's fading out. It'll give our old school rhetoric compadres plenty to get their teeth into in that respect, while everyone else is just being brainwashed into, doesn't say it's CGI, therefore it's not CGI. we can just debunk the area it comes from, regardless of any disclaimers that the monkeys and the general populace are being trained with in that regard. You just say, oh, space is fake. Gas would fill the space. Oh, but there's no disclaimer. Okay, numpty, get on with your normie life. No worries. Entropy law doesn't mean much to you, fine. No problem. 70 watching, please share the show if you haven't done so already. Very warm welcome to all of you who have just joined us. 71 watching. Good to have you all. Yeah, moving forward, I want to shout it from the hilltops that we've got proof now. It makes sense to me that we should stamp out the Feast of Nonsense rhetoric with something better, rather than criticising the people who use Feast of Nonsense arguments and get trapped in false dichotomies with globe believers or anti-flat earthers. We should just go stomp out that by being better than it. By saying, yeah, we've got proof. Yeah, it's measured flat. Because it's really hard for hitting. It's really impactful. Hey, Adam.
What's doing, guys?
75 watching. Somebody's definitely smashed the share button. Massive thank you in advance, by the way, to all of you who do hit the share button. That's the only reason we get up to 100 people watching each show. Because we're definitely not algorithmically favoured. That loves all going Simon Dan and Dave McKeegan and Professor Dave Explains way. If you do a search for this subject. So if we're going to shout it from the hilltops, I'm relying on you to be the hill that I'm standing on. It'll be your shoulders when you smash the share button. So thank you in advance. So I met Tinfoil Hatman on Friday. Very, very nice chap indeed. Adam was supposed to be there, as was Sleeping Warrior. Neither were there. They both let me down at the last minute.
Oh, it was a bit short notice for me. Otherwise, I'd have loved to have piled over. But I was at work still, so I just couldn't get locums. But good curry?
Not really.
Oh.
We don't live in a curry town. So, obviously, Tinfoil Hatman from part of the country where there's plenty of good curry houses. I'm familiar with where he's from without doxing him. But he's got plenty of good choice of curry houses. And when he was ordering, I'm from Birmingham originally, and there's probably the best selection of curry houses anywhere in the country in Birmingham. Or at least when I lived there, that was the way it was. So you get quite fussy about how you'll order and what you'll order from an Indian restaurant. And you know what you like and how you want the recipe to be, particularly like you've got it from your own favourite curry house. So you'll express that to the waiter if you know what you're doing with curry, which I do. And Tinfoil Hatman immediately started getting fussy. I'm like, this is a man from a place where there's lots of curry. Because he's quite particular, as I am, right? Anyway, the point is, yeah, the curry was crap because we're not in a curry town. So there's not strength of competition to keep the curry really, really good. So it's just average. I'm sure if you're from this town where I am in Leamington, people would say, oh, that's a wonderful curry house. Yeah, it's all right. Anyway, that wasn't the point. It was more the fact that there was Craig and I, the guy who runs the computer shop, the guy keeping my computer ticking over, and a couple of his mates who are regular customers of his, but now friends in the same way I am. Neither of them are flat earthers, and they're there as skeptics to the general discussion. And another guy came along. Now, he's the guy I'm going to focus on. And again, I'm not going to mention who he was, but if he's listening in, he may realise I'm talking about him. He started telling me about Antiquitech and the ether. He was the only one that was there going, oh yeah, I know it's flat. All right, okay, you're already a flat earther. Yeah. Brilliant. And obviously some of his 2015 Feast of Nonsense arguments came out about his flat earth belief. And again, over a curry, I didn't have the heart to tell him. Like, fair enough, there's bigger fish to fry here because there's two globe believers opposite me. Yeah, he then proceeded to tell me about Antiquitech and how the churches were powered by the aerials that have been feeding the electricity from the ether, and old photographs have got the sky all blacked out because they don't want you to see the aerials all giving the power to the buildings.
The old Vanilla Skies conspiracy theory on it.
Can't ruin a curry over that.
Well, I didn't want to ruin it. The guy was really sweet and a really nice guy, and I didn't want to ruin his evening by disagreeing with him on that in person. Now, that may sound hypocritical to people who are listening, but like I say, when there's a choice, of going after the globe believers who are telling me gas go down, go boom, boom, which is what we got into at one point in the meal. And I was quite insistent and indignant with the guy opposite. No, which gravity? Oh, here we go. You can see him shrinking, but prepared to stand his ground about what gravity was. And that went nowhere quickly, obviously got shut down by me. Well, meanwhile, there's a side conversation going on about ether and ether belief and which one am I going to choose? Are you going to pick your battles when there's 6 or 7 people around a table, aren't you?
Correct.
Have they got a natural phenomenon yet, Nathan? That isn't already something else?
Ooh, the gravity believers or the ether believers?
Either.
And no, unless Adam, emissary to the Etherians, can tell us otherwise.
No, we're still waiting for a naturally occurring phenomenon.
Yeah, that's where it all begins. And it only begins there because they're asserting scientific validity for both gravity and ether.
I posted a
The
video
only
earlier,
thing
Nathan.
occurring,
Hold on, Brian. Go ahead, Neil.
the only thing occurring over and over and over is them talking about ether.
Yeah,
Right.
well, Neil, you actually are correct. That is the only thing that's going over. He's correct. That's 100% correct. That's the only thing that is consistently recurring, which is concerning them, which is they're talking about it. What I was going to say is, because you're talking about gravity as well, is that I posted a video earlier. It's only 26 seconds long. And this guy posted it to me as a supposed debunk of air not having weight. This is supposed to prove that air does have weight. It's absolutely pathetic. There's even people in the comments, even one guy in the comment section who is obviously a globe believer. Even he is saying it's bad, kind of in his own words.
Okay, let's just get that correct in terms of the summary of what this is supposed to be demonstrating. So, based on the notion that gas go down, go boom, boom, because it's pulled to the earth by gravity, when in reality gas is produced at ground level and expands out and up, dissipating in line with entropic law as it expands in all directions. And if the sky was a vacuum, it would continue to expand into that area of volume, leaving us with no gas to breathe. The way they get around this argument is to say, no, gas has weight. Gas go down, go boom, boom. There's great big oxygen and water vapor factories in the sky pouring out gas like rain. There isn't, but gas go down, go boom, boom is their rebuttal, as absurd as that seems. Okay, so
Yeah.
that is the preamble, if you will, to this video. Okay, is there anything else I need to add before I press play, Brian? Do I need sound as well?
I don't. There was some silly music playing. I don't know if there's any copyright on it, but I don't think there. It's just 26 seconds anyway, so it's less than 30 seconds. So it's less than a short.
Is there anything useful beyond the music?
No.
Okay, well then I won't put it on. Okay, so we've got, for anybody who's not watching, like people listening only, got a balloon on a ruler with another balloon that's empty. So a full balloon and an empty balloon. What did I miss? I'm sorry, where was the demonstration? What did I miss? What am I missing? Brian, fill me in. Inflate a balloon.
Sorry, my hands were wet. I couldn't get to the phone. What you're missing is the very start of it. That's why I said it's 26 seconds long. He shows he has a few balloons, a ruler, and a few elastic bands. And what the ruler is supposed to be is a scale.
Oh.
And
Okay.
There's something stuck on the top of the ruler. And it's even from the angle that they're taking it at, I can't even say for certain that the ruler is going down to one side or not. But the whole thing is so horrendous. Even a baller in the comments is saying, "No, this is not the way to show what you're trying to show." Do you know what I mean? It's terrible.
I
But this
don't
is
know.
supposed to be
Right, Adam, you there? You got a sec?
all right.
I'm just back. Sorry, yeah. What was
Okay,
that?
so I hate to disagree with you, Brian. I'm not disagreeing with you in principle, but if you're gonna weigh gas, you can squeeze more stuff, that's the gas, into a confined space. Now, what that will do is increase the pressure. Now, you can admirably show that there is definitely more stuff in the balloon because it's stretched out, i.e. the pressure alludes to the fact that there is more stuff in the balloon because it's now at a higher pressure. Okay, would you agree so far, Brian? There's got to be more air in the balloon because it's exhibiting stretching of the container, therefore must be at a high pressure. There must be more air in the balloon than outside the balloon. Would you agree?
Yeah, there is.
Therefore, the quantity of stuff in the balloon, in a very crude way, is higher in the yellow
It's a higher
balloon
density, than the outside air.
Say again?
It's a higher density of air than the outside air. An air-filled balloon will go down, you see. This is the joke.
No, I didn't use
This
the
is
word density. Let's not get into that wrangle-dangle. I'm going to say that you can
Yeah, but
infer
that's the
that there's
answer.
more stuff in
No,
the
it's
yellow
not.
balloon.
There's more
Hold on,
molecules.
everyone's talking through me. You can infer there's more stuff in the yellow balloon because it is factually demonstrating a higher pressure. Would you agree?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, obviously.
Okay. And in terms of how we quantify solids in air, you can demonstrate a difference with a scale. Would you agree?
Yes.
Therefore, although crude, this would show how you can bastardize a convention of weight and quite literally and figuratively force gases into that convention by way of containment. Would you agree?
No.
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 Why
No.
not?
No way.
Why not?
No.
Because you're now outside of the convention. You might try and kid yourself that you've maintained the rules of the convention, but you haven't.
We're talking
Yeah,
about
if you have, you
the
won't have
convention
to
of
have
weight.
a balloon with
Hold
a
on,
closed top.
just for the audience's benefit, Brian, we're talking specifically about the convention of weight. That's the displacement of solids or contained liquids in air.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brian.
So, in your container, if it was a liquid or a solid, all of the molecules that you're trying to weigh would be exerting their pressure downwards, yeah, or against the side, which will then go down. But as soon as you're dealing with a gas, I ask the question rather than make a statement. Are all of the molecules applying their pressure downwards?
No.
No. Well, if they're not, then we can't call it weight because the convention of weight, that's one of the prerequisites. The other one is it needs to be in the medium of air.
But am I not bastardizing the convention to the extent that it makes sense to a globe believer when I show that when forcing gases into a container, increasing their pressure, the container can be weighed and demonstrate, like this balloon has demonstrated, that there is an increase in weight in that convention?
No, you can't use the term. There's not an increase in weight.
The container got heavier.
The reading on the scales will change because of what you've done, but you're not allowed to call that weight because it's not weight. It doesn't fit the description of weight. Yeah. All you can do is look at the person and go, look at that mental person trying to weigh gas on scales. Yeah. And he thinks because the numbers change on his scale that he's weighing gas.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's not correct, Nathan.
No, I realise that. Brian. Thank you. Go on. Off you go.
Yeah, the reason the reason I sent you that was it was a big ad hoc scales that someone made up, and they're just using the fact that an air-filled balloon will go down in air because there is a greater density of air in the balloon. There's a greater amount of air in the balloon, so an air-filled balloon goes down. You know, a carbon dioxide balloon goes down, but a carbon monoxide balloon or a helium balloon, these kind of ones, they go up. So it's a density differential issue with the medium and what the balloon is in. But the real joke was the scales. There was a ruler thing, which is there's no scales. That was why I was saying it. Like this was supposed to debunk. This was supposed to be a debunk of vacuum weights being more than air weights. It's like the whole I don't know why these people are trying to debunk that because it's a known thing within industry. You know what I mean? They know about this in industry. And that was why I sent it to you or I put it in Master B. Sorry, and I said it to you because there is no debunking that. You can't debunk something that's just a fact in reality. But that's what they're trying to do with this stupid ruler as a weight, as a scales. It's just ridiculous. The whole thing is terrible. There's just the patheticness of it and the stupidness of it is the reason I sent it to you.
Indeed. Any more comments on this?
Well, why is it that they think that an air-filled balloon, which is a greater density of air within the balloon, greater amount of air within the balloon, greater pressure than what's on the outside, why do they think that going down somehow is weight having, or air having weight? Because all I've gotten in the comments on my vacuum weights video, the shorts video I made, all I've ever gotten is buoyancy. And weight creates buoyancy. And they're trying to come at me with the buoyancy formula, which is a heap of nonsense. It's like buoyancy is not, weight is an apparent effect of buoyancy. More buoyancy, less weight. Less buoyancy, more weight. It's that simple. But they keep on trying to say buoyancy. So not weight then. Because I can weigh water without having a lid on the top of the container. But I can't weigh a gas without having the top of the container sealed. Can I? Because you can't weigh a gas. It can't be done. All you're doing is the extra pressure that's hitting the bottom of the canister, and any liquefaction of the gas due to pressures that would be happening at the bottom of the container. That's all you're getting, with the exception of the weight of the container. You're not getting anything else. That's what's on the scales. You're not weighing the gas. It can't be done.
No, you're working outside of the convention of weight, in essence. But in terms of that demonstration, you remove the weight. You remove the air from a vacuum chamber with something on a scale, and the weight increases. Brian?
Sorry?
You remove...
Yeah, the weight increases. The weight increases because the only thing that air is given to an object is buoyancy. It's not given any extra weight. So the weight increases. Because what they get mixed up with, Nathan, is, and I said it to him, I've said it only
before
today.
Before you tell us what get mixed up with, this is concluding the point that we're discussing. So in terms of what gravity with gas go down, go boom, boom, what's the effect on the demonstration that you're describing? You've got an item, let's call it an apple, and it's in a vacuum, and you remove all the air. Well, the weight of that apple will increase on the scale. Whereas according to gas go down, go boom, boom, the weight of the gas is pressing down on the apple when it's inside with the apple. That's to say the gas, the air that we're breathing, should be pressing down also if gas go down, go boom, boom. Therefore, when you remove the gas, which is going down, go boom, boom because of the gravity, then the scale should decrease according to them. It doesn't.
Yeah, it increases. The weight increases, not decreases. They need it to decrease. And this is what they try to do is they try to jump to water, right? And say things have buoyancy in water. Yeah, but because it's a more dense medium. But you can weigh water without a lid on the container. You can't weigh gas without a lid on the container. That means gas is going up. Do you know what I mean? Not down, not weight. It can't be done. It's like, I don't know if we'll ever get through to these people. You can't weigh a gas because it doesn't have weight. End of story. Gases don't have weight, but they need air to have weight. Because how they describe a helium balloon going up is the weight of their atmosphere is coming down, right, displacing the helium balloon up. Like what that actually is if you take a glass half filled with water and you pour some sand into the glass, then what will happen is the sand will go to the bottom and the water will go up above the sand. It lift the water level, right? But the sand will be at the bottom. But for them, air must be like that sand. If you understand. So for them, like things can't weigh more in a vacuum. They just can't. They have to have them weigh less. Otherwise, they have absolutely no claim. There's no point in saying buoyancy. Buoyancy is not weight. Buoyancy is not weight. Buoyancy is not a linear downward vector force on a scale. That's weight. And if you don't have that, which they don't, then they don't have a claim. It's that simple.
Okay, well, we may as well, as always, it doesn't matter who we're covering, we will send our love their way. So if you're currently one of the 95 people watching, woohoo, by the way, thank you for sharing, that's watching. I'll do this call to action for a couple of minutes just so that people can go along to the videographer, let them know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. So this is called Curio Ed. Hopefully I'm saying your name of the channel right. But yeah, pop along. There's a link going by in the live stream chat right now. And just give them a polite hello. Let them know we sent you. If you like what you saw, subscribe, obviously. But the idea being, large or small videographer, were they to make a response, we would hope they would put a link to our video, helping us in the algorithmic love, regardless if this particular YouTuber is smaller than we are. Not often the case, but he should be offered the same assistance in YouTube as we would hope to receive from our opponents when they cover us. So there you go. Hopefully that call to action's given you enough time to pop along to this YouTuber. Let them know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me in their comment section, boosting his video in the popularity and all that stuff that we would hope to get and never do. Done. Okay. Was there anything else on this particular gas go down, go boom, boom garbage?
Well, there was a presentation concerning this and gravity and concerning ether and dielectric acceleration on Ballbusters on Saturday. So it's going to be a double on those two topics on Saturday. And vacuum weights will be at the center of that presentation.
But for them, or your response to them?
Well, it'll be vacuum weights debunking both of their claims, both gravity and the claim of dielectric acceleration.
Oh, I see. So when we do, what you're saying is on Saturday, are we doing Ballbusters on Saturday?
Well, as far as I know, yeah, it's happening. As far as I know.
And when we do, we'll be covering the gas go down, go boom, boom, because gravity pulls the gas down when it's produced in the sky. It isn't. It's produced on the ground and expands up. Nevertheless, you'll be covering that with this specific argument. That is to say, if you were to weigh an apple in a vacuum chamber and remove the gas that's going down, go boom, boom, because buoyancy, or whatever it is that they're claiming with their anti-flat earth rhetoric, then one would assume that the weight on the scale for the apple would decrease because there's no longer gas going down, go boom, boom, you've sucked it all out. When in reality, the weight of the apple increases.
Exactly. And we're also going to be debunking the claim of dielectric acceleration with that too, with some extra caveats.
Indeedy. And I wanted to ruin the mood for a flat earther, feeling quite pleased that he's among fellow flat earthers. He's finally on that table where not everyone else around the table is in the majority belief. That guy that I was talking about earlier, it was one of those few occasions where there's, 4 people on the table that are flat earthers and 2 people that aren't, along with everybody else who might be here within the conversation. But you know what I mean? There's very rare that that's the circumstance. And in that way, you do feel like, look, you've come out, you've pressed the flesh, you've come here to represent, you're a flat earth and you're proud to say it. You believe that there's been antiquitech that's been hidden from us because of some blacked out photos. But I'm not going to link, or should have, maybe I should have, the fact that gas don't go down, go boom, boom, but needs to in an electric force idea, belief that you've got, because it's not comporting with the physical reality of the nature of the world that we do experience, which is unfortunate, but, I wasn't going to take that away from him. But moving forward, I think we have to,
Well, the difference we have between us and the people who follow this show and are part of it is, and the majority of the rest of Flat Earth, is that we don't have a belief that a measurement is a measurement.
Perfect segue.
A measurement is a fact.
Yeah, absolutely perfect segue. So that's what I started out this live show with, and I'm going to start to tail off the show with it as well. Which is to say, moving forward on Flat Earth Debate, that is the rhetoric that we are going to be moving forward with. Yeah? Hashtag measured flat Earth. We will stamp out the notion of having to put forward conspiratorial nonsense ideas of Earth being flat with a belief that you may have held up until this point. Because we can prove it now. More so than ever, we can show how Earth is measured flat. You don't need to know about 9/11. You don't need to know about vaccines. You don't need to know about any of these conspiratorial subjects that may be mainstream or maybe not. You don't need them. You can understand how Earth is measured flat. And that's what we'll be pushing moving forward. so that moving forward, we're not just regurgitating in an endless cycle the feast of nonsense, false dichotomy arguments that leave us arguing with globe believers about how, no, it's a downward force of electric incoherent dielectric acceleration towards the Earth because of the ether, versus, no, gas go down, go boom, boom. Gas factories in the sky pouring out all the gas coming down like rain. Yeah, those false dichotomy arguments can end pretty quickly if you just know it's measured flat. When your opponent says, you're a flat earther, what makes you think it's flat? I don't think it's flat. I know it's flat. That's how it's measured. If that's your response, you'll lose a lot less loved ones, friends, family members. Why? Well, because there's nothing contentious about you telling them how it is, rather than telling them they haven't got an open enough mind. So that's going to be our focus on Flat Earth debate. And I hope you all join in sharing that sentiment around by smashing that share button as that permeates our way through our community. And in that, there'll be a section of our community that will be left behind, left in the tatty old-fashioned ways of telling people how to debunk heliocentric garbage with complex notions of how orbital motion's not working and how they don't really line up with the lights that we do see, or how boats might be vanishing because of diffraction limits. All that old dusty old crap that we used to use is all superseded by just telling people it's measured flat and showing them how it's measured flat. Now, that's not to say we won't cover all the stuff that is useful in terms of understanding how to spot logical fallacies, or how rhetorical the arguments are going to be from your opponent if you are arguing this, or how the notions of the world in the way it's been formed on a flat plane with the measurements to prove it comes to pass on the maps and the systems that make the maps, also proving Earth is flat. So all those complex subjects, obviously, we're going to still cover on a daily basis, but I feel that the focus on each and every show should be to point out that we can prove it now. You've come to this show if you're a newbie, if you're amongst the 90-odd people that are watching, and you're going, what's all this about? Well, you might ask yourself, what is your golden, or silver bullet, sorry, for Flat Earth? Well, knowing how it's measured, knowing how it's navigated, knowing how the grid system's developed, all of these things required Earth to be measured flat, and in order to utilise those systems, you must measure Earth flat. That's how it's done. Confidence inspiring, I hope.
I was just going to say, I think it's important for us to, and I know you might say no or decry this, but I think it's important for us to point out the fraud and just logically fraudulent things our opposition comes up with. Because, like, in the end of the day, when push comes to shove with someone who has a PhD, where do they turn? They end up turning to someone like Fight the Flat Earth or Ruhif or Blue Marble Science, one of these people. Because at the end of the day, these people are the best the globe have got. The PhDs now are not the best. They're the best at pumping out the canon and the rhetoric, but they're not the best when it comes to actually addressing topics. What you need for that is the Ruhifs and the Blue Marble Sciences and the Fight the Flat Earth, who just make stuff up, right? And put out videos, like McCune, all these. They put out arguments and videos that are obviously flawed. They're either fraudulent or they're logically flawed. You know what I mean? Where they get their conclusions from a point of illogic. For instance, with Ruhif, he brought out a video attacking Jerome Campanella on something recently, and I could go through, and me and Adam watched the video and a couple of the rest of us on one of the after shows, and I could go through all the problems with the video, or I could just start at the very start, which was he first needed an elevation, and the elevation Ruhif got from Google Earth, right, was 7 meters. Now Google Earth get their elevations from Ordnance Survey, right, data that has been surveyed by actual surveyors. So that's 7 meters on Google Earth, right? But Ruhif done his own ad hoc nonsense, his own version of surveying, and came up with 14.7 meters, right? That's more than double what's on Google Earth. So I've spent up until Saturday, I spent about 3 or 4 days asking him, trying to get, right, the Ordnance Survey data for his exact coordinates. And he will not give it. He'll give it for the nearby benchmark. He'll give it for this and that. He will not give me the Ordnance Survey data, elevation data for his coordinates. Now, the reason why I'm saying that is not to have a personal pick at Ruhif in this show. The reason I'm saying that is we should be pulling apart this nonsense, because this is the nonsense that fools people out there. This is the nonsense that people will not realize what's going on. They won't understand the processes. Ruhif will come across, or someone like him will come across as if they are very knowledgeable and know what they're talking about, when what they're doing is complete nonsense. You know, the way he came up with if you saw Nathan, how he came up with his 14.7 meter elevation, I mean, it's completely fraudulent. And the fact that he will not give me, I could go and look and get his coordinates and go looking for the Ordnance Survey data, but I don't need to. All I need to know is that Ruhif will spend 3 days not giving it to me, because he knows it's going to say about 7 meters. But he won't tell his audience that, or someone new. He'll say nothing to that person and give the person the impression that he's giving them all the information they need, and he was at an elevation of 14.7 meters that he surveyed. You know what I mean? This is the problem. We have these people out there who are pretending to be things they're not, and they're fooling the general public with fraud. That's all it is. Finish, sorry.
Oh, well, I was just going to ask, is the 14.7 meters above surface level?
Yeah, it's in relation to sea level.
Yes.
Yeah, that he'll hand wave. That he tries to hand wave. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's reluctant to give you the height with respect to sea level. That would be with respect to a horizontal plane of reference.
Yes.
Proving a flat Earth.
Yes, I totally agree. Right, no argument there. Right, but for the average, I'm talking about for the average everyday, as Joe Coffey, as QE calls it. Joe Coffey doesn't know, and Betty Breadmaker, as QE says, the average everyday people, they don't pay attention to these kind of things. It's not registering with them that sea level means sea horizontal. It means it's a horizontal plane. That's not registering with them. All that's registering with those people is that there's this guy who seems to really know his stuff, and he's giving them a load of maths and all the rest of it, and he must be right. That's all that's going on in their heads. When what's really going on is complete fraud from Ruhif. Total fraud. A surveying fraud from the very start. As I said, I didn't even need to go any further than his elevation. Just, he won't give me the elevation. Why won't he give me the OS data for his actual coordinates? Because he knows it's going to match Google. And I don't worry. I've said to him that'll be sea level. You'll need a flat Earth for that, and he just hand waves it, because that's all he can do with that.
I like to really rub those sorts of things in his face. I mean, he can just hand wave it, and yeah, no worries. You know, it's the same with me explaining that if you explain that Earth is measured flat to a family member, then they can just hand wave it. But that's on them, isn't it? It's very much easier to hand wave and ridicule and be annoyed at someone that tells you that you're not open-minded enough, because they've told you about how a load of globe claims don't quite work properly if you have a really comprehensive understanding of sky movement that's being presented to you on a little crappy video on YouTube. Therefore, you don't understand Earth's flat, you very closed-minded fool. Yeah, those people get annoyed with you real quick. But hand waves? Yeah, hand wave it. You tell me how you can reference your height above a globe Earth, and I'll be interested to hear it. And if you're going to tell me that surface level and sea level aren't level because they're referenced to a sphere, then how do you reference your surface level and eye level in your maths if they're bent? Answer, you don't. Those geometric principles hold true in globe maths. Therefore, level is level. And the surface level in your maths is the surface level, and it's flat. In your maths and ours and the world, because Earth is flat, and that's how it's measured.
Or when it does register, am I coming in?
Breaker. Yes, Neil. Yes.
I would say when it does register, like when it registered, as I explained to my son, he's studying, you can't answer me for the 2 points in the sky, and walk away. Very painful.
Okay. I mean, like I say, if that was preceded by you telling him how Earth's measured flat, and you're offered up and affirming the consequent fallacy of antipodal positioning with northern and southern hemispheres and axial positioning that also requires a flat plane to describe with an axis, then, you know, advanced flat earthers who visit flat earth debate will be able to point that out to them. But nevertheless, at the point, if it was to precede it, that you told your son that Earth is measured flat and described how it's measured flat, what rebuttal does he have beyond the Ruhif hand wave? The answer is nothing, Neil. Now, they can affirm the consequent to you until they're blue in the face, a fallacy is better than nothing, but it doesn't adjust the fact that Earth's measured flat, even if you don't point out that the axis of rotation requires a horizontal plane of reference to describe it also.
That's correct.
Indeed it is. Like I say, we should be starting from this point forth, moving into, we're going into 2024. Is that right? That Earth's measured flat. That should be our starting point for all of our arguments moving forward. We can prove it. What's that? Flat earther? Ha ha ha. Yeah, I can prove it though. Oh yeah. Yeah, I can, yeah. That's how it's measured. Here's an example. Here's how you can save your life at sea with that methodology. Here's your own maths using it flat. Isn't that funny? Ha ha ha. Yeah, I can prove it. And I'll be pointing that out from this moment forth, and hopefully it'll encourage people to share the show. 96 people. Haven't quite tipped over 100 on this show. Please share the show. If you're watching and you're amongst the 96 people, there's a good chance that you've only come because someone else has shared it to you. So smash that share button, hit the like button, all that good stuff.
Nathan, I brought my son up because it did register. He understands it, but he's still in serious pain.
Well, that's all you can do. I mean, it's obviously a bit harder to say share your pain when it's a relative, but share your pain you must. Earth is measured flat.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's one of those things that realization, I guess, because most people don't like the word revelation. It's not really down to us, is it?
Well, now he's bringing up things like when Jesus, you know, was communion, this is my body, which is broken for you. He's trying to say, is Jesus really saying that that's his flesh and his blood? So now he's trying to compare it with Genesis and anywhere in the Bible where, you know, the proofs that we use. So he wants to put it as an allegory, or he was just explaining. Oh, can't do that. Where it's an allegory, it's an allegory. Where it's not, it's not.
Maybe one thing that would benefit the show is to have like just a basic show where we cover prepositions and the basic meaning of words, you know, to help people out, like the difference between on and in, to and from, apparent and actual, you know, like maybe it's grammar problems that people are having.
Words and their meanings and stuff. Semantics.
Yeah, like the difference between in and on, you know, like inosphere, onosphere aren't the same thing.
You're not letting that one go, huh?
Yeah, I won't let to and from go either.
So, Brian, have you informed QE as a reminder? I vaguely remember you saying that a few days before the Ballbusters that you'll be doing this, you would give him a heads up about it. Have you already done that? Oh, no, to be sure. I must do that. Oh, well, you do that, Brian.
Wow. Just getting a good bit of a debate and the shop kicked off. So did I hear you've rounded out already?
Only rounded out the live show.
It was, I'm probably going to have to run off. So don't accuse me of cowardice after doing this. I don't know if Arwen's there, but this topic came up a bit yesterday. And consistent as I am, some of the rhetoric Arwen was using, I had to disagree with. I don't know what, he must be on his period or something, because he went absolutely chicken oriental at me, screaming at me, telling me he's been doing this for years, so he must know. Therefore, using fallacy, he's right. Because
Which topic, Adam? Which
it was on about gas pressure and weight. And I was being, just like I was there, being hyper specific. It's very important to me. I don't know if Arwen's there, but I was saying, well, let's discuss it on the show on Monday, because I wasn't trolling him, as some of his panel were suggesting. But if we're going to use phrases, I like to use them correct. I don't know if Arwen's there.
I don't think he's here at the moment, no.
Maybe save it for later then. Well, if we notice when he gets back, because I'd just like to go over it with him. Again, it was to do with this term weight. He was claiming that the weight of the gas canister, they'll have more weight, and you put gas into it. And I understand in a very colloquial sense that you might be able to say that, yeah? But I think I made the point earlier, you're not using the term weight anymore in its definition for you to be able to say it weighs more in a colloquial sense.
Yeah, you're actually not adding to the weight, you're adding just to the downward pressure. But it's, if you know what I mean, because what you're adding into the canister can't have weight. It's an impossibility.
It's a state of matter that by its definition can't be weighed.
Well, if it could, your canister wouldn't need a top on it, would it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is this another one of those where the molecular weight is getting confused with the definition of weight as we normally use it?
It was more, yeah, it was more what the actual definition implies, that it is that convention that ties you to the convention to use the word weight. You can't just then, if you've made that statement, go around using the word weight willy-nilly to mean other things, which aren't weight. I.e., if I fill a gas canister with shitloads of gas, so it's really pressurized, and I can see a different reading on the scale, am I allowed to call that different reading a demonstration of the weight? Or am I just misunderstanding the convention of weight when I do that?
I think it might be the second.
I'd have to agree with you there. You can't, because you can't. What you have something. You have that extra pressure must be weight for it to be called weight. And if that pressure is equal in all directions, not just down, then you can't call it weight.
2 minutes.
Nathan, I couldn't get to me. My hands were wet again. I was doing stuff at home here. Yes, I have a QE. Actually, I was supposed to contact him, but he contacted me the weekend, just via message, just to say, "Am I still up for that?" I said, "Yeah." So he is fully aware of it.
How you doing that your hands are always wet today?
I'm just busy doing stuff at the house. That's all. Just trying to do things.
Or he's murdering ballers, and he's got the wetness is the blood.
Nathan, I don't know how you kept your tongue with the guy who was on about ether. I can't do it. I'm better off not being at those events because I have to say something. I won't be trying to give it to the person down the banks, but I'll be absolutely disagreeing with them and asking them to show evidence for, do you know what I mean, for what they're claiming. I know you were
Not when you're eating curry, Brian. Curry supersedes everything.
Well, it's hard to assert that weight is caused by an incoherent dielectric acceleration that applies to gas when you know that, things weigh more in a vacuum. That's probably going to be a problem for you and LeBron.
Well, yes, John, especially when you're claiming certain properties that are also connected to those gases as part of the reason for your dielectric acceleration. That is going to be a problem. Because if you're claiming... Go on.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, so people like Whitsitt, who we addressed with this, I know you addressed it, he's been shown to be wrong, and he's still going to go out and hunt this nonsense? What do you do with that?
Well, this will be the final nail in the coffin, I reckon, because even though these other effects that were claimed to be dielectric acceleration, they were shown to be incorrect. They're still pushing it. So after this one, they I can't say the ether, but they'll have to walk away from dielectric acceleration. Well, either that or they'll stay in just completely triple speak, because one of the main properties of the gases is one of the main properties that they're claiming is the cause of dielectric acceleration. So that's going to be very difficult.
Down. This is what drives me crazy when they constantly say it sets it down. What down?
Yeah, but saying it's completely contradictory, because what they say is electrostatics set the down and buoyancy and density does the rest. How can buoyancy and density do the rest when you've just negated buoyancy and density doing anything by the claim of the setting of it down by electrostatics? Do you know what I mean? It's a complete hijack at the molecular level. That's what, and the atomic level. It's a complete hijack. You can't say electrostatics set the down and buoyancy and density do the rest. What? Like they deal with the up? What are you talking about? You know what I mean? It's complete utter rubbish. But they keep pushing it. And David Weiss, I've heard David Weiss say this now, that exact statement he just made. I heard him say that several times in recent months, whenever I've heard him on a video or something.
Yeah.
What statement?
Well,
Sets it down.
Yeah, the statement is electrostatics sets it down and buoyancy and density do the rest. That's a completely contradictory statement. Go on, sorry.
Well, I was just saying, I don't understand in their rhetoric why they have to disavow particles. Like what are they gaining from that? Just saying, oh, we don't believe in the atomic model while we use things from the atomic model.
Well, how can they not believe in the atomic model when they're accepting H2O is 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen? That'd be 3 atoms, atomic. And the electrostatics, which would be covalent or ionic bonds, I think they're covalent with the H2O, covalent bonds that keeps that molecule together, that they're claiming is the reason for their claimed down. You understand? So the very essence, and I didn't get around to saying this when I was on the debate with Whitsitt, because I couldn't get that anywhere near anything I wanted to say, because he just wanted to go around in circles and give out about Nathan and Kiwi. This rubbish. So I never got to get to that point. But how can you claim the electrostatics of a H2O molecule when a H2O molecule is defined as 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen? And the electrostatics is what the covalent bonds that hold that molecule together. Do you know what I mean? And then deny the atomic model. It's like But there's 3 things in there that's part of the atomic model. Do you know what I mean? And the boundary
Brian,
framing.
Brian.
Come on.
Were you in the room the other day when QE played that thing that Whitsitt was on? He was debating some guy. I think Adam was.
No.
It was after the show. Oh my God! You got to hear some of this nonsense.
I was mad to listen in. I had no sound for some reason or another. No matter what I did, no matter how many times I hung up, how many times I restarted my headphones, there was just zero sound. I could see the video was playing. I could see you talking. I couldn't hear anything.
Oh my God! Well, you saved yourself a right headache. That's for sure.
Well, I'd like to hear it because I'm sure it was entertaining. Could you give some details of it?
I can't because I'm driving. But we got to get QE. Where is he? Play that again. Or somebody find that video.
Or whoever was there, maybe Refracted or someone if they were there.
Adam,
give us
are you
details.
there?
Adam might be busy at the shop.
Put down the pills and come on. Come on.
I was not around for what you're talking about, I don't think.
I'm here, Neil. Sorry.
Sorry.
I heard Neil hollowing. Sorry. What was up?
But just some for the details of what the video that QE went through with you in the after show the other day. What was in that? Was a Whitsitt debating somebody or something. Could you give us a brief rundown?
Yeah, that Whitsitt train wreck.
Really? Well, it's Fantasyland, isn't it? It's let's describe ether without describing anything. Yeah. So we looked up a word, didn't we, that I found quite applicable. What is it? Apophasis, isn't it? So theoapophasis, yeah, is the guy that pumps this stuff, isn't it? In terms of ether, the original dielectric kind of waffle. But I was looking at what his name means, and it's quite a. There we go, Merriam-Webster. Apophasis, the roots of it. Apophasis is the sly debater's trick, a way of sneaking an issue into the discussion while maintaining plausible deniability. It should come as no surprise then that the root of apophasis lie in the concept of denial the word, which was adopted from the English to Latin. That's the point. It's a bit, put something in there, but maintain plausible deniability. Well, if you think about what they're doing, it's exactly what's being happened. You can't have electrons, yeah, but we'll have electrostatics. Yeah, there's a level of twisting it so that they're not held to anything, but can then discuss the particular topics in a, i.e. ether, non-manifest. You get distracted with that. Yeah. So that was kind of what it is. It was, if you listen to Whitsitt, it's him just sticking things in, trying to claim something, but then if held to anything, he'll deny the antecedent for the thing he's just claimed, i.e. electrostatics, the antecedent being electrons. Yeah. But he'll talk with all the knowledge and intelligence that you think you attribute to him, that he's like has some understanding of the subject, but then to having made the statements he does about electrostatic, to then deny the electron and describe everything as a non-manifest film of light that's always there anyway, because light's ether. It's just not excited enough to not cause light, but to cause illumination, or in a much lower vibration for matter. Yeah.
Yeah, the darkness.
Yeah, but that's kind of where he's at. Is to claim a theory and then subsequently show that everything that was described in that, and I use the theory in the colloquial sense, as in Whitsitt's theory of ether, but then when pressed further, everything descriptive that you thought you understood in that theory has now been undermined and is denied by Whitsitt. Electrons being a great example.
Are you giving it like as an example? He would claim the Kashmir effect and then deny the virtual photons that are meant to show this effect.
That's exactly what he did.
That's a great example. Yeah, yeah. Here's the Casimir effect. This proves ether. Okay. And in that is a virtual photon. Yeah, well, virtual photons don't exist. That's stupid because we don't believe in the atomic model. But anyway, ether's real because of the Casimir effect, you see?
The bigger indictment
Yeah.
was with the two chaps that were with him, sitting there wide-eyed and just absorbing everything Whitsitt had to give them and asking great questions according to Whitsitt. It was all a bunch of shit. Right, Adam?
Well, at the base of it all, and I know I make the joke about it, but I'm also dead serious. At the base of it all, what they're actually claiming is ether is darkness and that light hides in the dark. That's what they're claiming. If you go into what exactly they're claiming about ether and how light is manifest, all this other nonsense, they're claiming darkness. That's all it is, the dark. That's literally, you couldn't break it down any further than that. That it's just
You mute,
darkness
Neil.
they're claiming is ether. Just darkness they're claiming is ether. That's what they're claiming. I broke it down as far as it can be broken down.
So what is he saying? That when the darkness gets excited, it becomes light?
No, he's not addressing the darkness at all. He's talking everything around everything, but without mentioning darkness, because that's the very thing that he's trying to hijack. They, not just him, but they are trying to hijack darkness and make that into ether without people realizing that all it is darkness. It's a bit like gravity. What is this force of gravity? All it is a density differential between the medium and the objects or substances within it, taking a downward vector, because the medium can't show any resistance to them. Do you know what I mean? An anvil will fall through air because there's no resistance enough for the anvil. There is some resistance, but not enough to stop the anvil going down. Not for enough. There isn't enough buoyancy in air for the anvil to go up. It's that right. So what is that? Is that gravity? No, it's just a density differential that was hijacked. But when it comes to ether, it's even worse because they're just hijacking darkness. Do you know what I mean? That's what it is. When there isn't light, right? Light is a manifestation of the ether. So when light doesn't manifest, is the ether still there? Yeah. So when there isn't light, what is there? There's darkness. So ether is darkness. It's that simple.
So darkness goes along with all the other names they gave it.
No, darkness
Brilliant.
is just the honest truth of what it is. All the other nonsense they come up with is not honesty. If they were to be honest, they just claim darkness, because that's what they're actually claiming.
Yeah, the lack of something is something. Yeah, that's great.
Well, the frustrating thing about that was they're all sitting there discussing it like they're discussing the reality of a slice of bacon. Like, there's no proof of this ether. We can't even get it defined, and they're talking about it as a thing.
When QE tore it apart by showing that the ether was just invented, that just means in this context, doesn't mean that was actually invented, it was just made up by Christian Huygens. So he invented it as a way of describing the motion of the claimed planets. Do you know what I mean? Through the sky and whatever. He invented this thing. And they're trying to wrangle in nonsense from ancient Greece. No, it's just Christian Huygens. He invented it. So, but they're just latching on to this invention, which is just a made up. I mean, invention is a nicer way of saying that they just made stuff. He just made stuff up.
Is it because they're still trying to validate Bob Nodell somehow, and they're trying to get an answer for the gravity? Because that's what I hear a lot too. It sets it down, and no need for gravity. That's the answer to gravity.
It's because they have a belief, Neil, and Bob had a belief. I know he's gone now, so I'm not going to disrespect him because he's gone. But Bob, I'm going to be honest, Bob had beliefs, and he didn't have knowings. He had beliefs. And that's why, just like the ballers have beliefs, You can only believe in the force of gravity. You can only believe in the heliocentric model. You can only believe in a globe. You can never know because there's no way of validating it. You
Right,
can
it's
know
the
if the Earth
nonsense.
is a flat plane because you can
Well,
measure
that's not quite right. The way they validate it is by, John, using a flat plane and claiming that it's proving a globe. So they'll utilize a flat plane of reference, get an elevation angle measurement, and then potentially even ask you how you would be claiming it's flat with the flat Earth measurement that proves it's a globe, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but they haven't validated a globe, Nathan. That's the difference.
So they were effective gatekeepers, like to enable the ball with a possibility, because if they just like replaced gravity, turn it into something else, then they're giving this option remotely, though, that maybe the gas can stick to the ball somehow, and it somehow indirectly legitimizes the globe train of thinking. That's what the Feast of Nonsense is for, right? Hello?
Well, yeah, it's a replacement of the globe. That's all it is. Replacing the globe's Feast of Nonsense with some new flat Earth Feast of Nonsense.
Right. It's just take the aberrations that have no evidence, no solution with anything, but are there, and then give them another thing that they are doing instead.
Yeah.
Give them the chicken feed.
I don't know how people can get sucked in by something like the ether so easy when there's such backlash to it. I mean, if there was no backlash to it, I could understand why you could be taken in by it. When there's no backlash to something, it's easy to be taken in by it.
Well, there's only backlash to it if you perceive that backlash to be a thing. Right? And hey, people, why do they drown in nonsense? Because people like drowning in nonsense. They like it. They love it. They love the nonsense. They love pondering about something where nobody can tell them if it has any point. Right? This open, free-range speculation without any results. And it's freedom. It's a freedom of mind. If you believe nonsense and you roll out that nonsense, then you can believe that and nobody can prove you wrong. Indirect or directly, right? You can point out how it is nonsense and a waste of time, but you can't disprove it.
Well, the thing about it is that the real problem we have is that people are too busy wanting to not address reality. They just don't want to accept reality. That's what it is. Reality is too cut and dry for them.
To the proving or disproving their claim, is that really necessary, though?
You don't have to disprove something. Yeah.
You can't disprove something that hasn't been proven at all.
Right, but why would you have to disprove it then?
To dissuade them from pursuing the nonsense?
Hey, when you were there, we were talking about the video with it that Kiwi played the other day.
Oh, the one where I was talking about beating him with a stick?
Yes.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about it.
Tell us about it.
Tell them a little bit about the nonsense that we had to deal with the other day. Was that a bunch of shit or what?
It was a complete cluster screw of inverse fractal thinking. It's like, yeah, how can you double speak and then use the double speak as a stepping stone construction for more double speak and then somehow think that it all makes sense? And that's what he was doing. I mean, it was borderline or past borderline psychotic. It was just pretty much straight out psychotic, the things that he was saying.
Yeah, Brian said he kept trying. He wasn't getting any volume. He kept seeing us talking and seeing the video, but he couldn't get any volume. I said, well, you've probably done yourself a favor by not hearing it.
Were they doing that thing where they try to describe nothing and then claim that nothing can exist, therefore it's ether, therefore ether is nothing?
No, way worse than that. It was beyond, that was way too cohesive a form of argumentation to compare.
Yeah, that's true. They didn't even, he's exactly right. I was kind of wishing they would say, sorry.
Anymore when I hear,
Sorry.
oh, I was just going to say, I think about Neil deGrasse Tyson and his buddy when they're trying to describe nothing, but they keep turning it into something, you know? Like, that's what I see the ether people doing a lot.
Well, how would you describe nothing? You describe everything that surrounds the nothing and thereby pointing out the outlines of the nothing, because that's the only thing you can really do, to point at it.
Well, when you point at it, it's something.
Not if you point at everything else.
Then you're not pointing at nothing.
Indirectly, you are. By only pointing at everything, you automatically, thereby logically, point out where the nothing is by not pointing at it.
So you can't point at nothing,
Yeah.
but if you point at everything else, you can claim there is nothing.
Yes. Now, good luck pointing at everything else.
Oh, am I?
Yeah, you're still roboting. Continue, Neil.
I just want to know what the name of the video was. XP played.
Called transform and roll out. And roll back in again.
You know, I think one of the reasons that flat earthers have such an attachment to the ether is they think it's a proof that the earth's not spinning. You know, when they get into the Michelson-Morley.
You mean that horseshit, that great argument that Whitsitt argued why we can't let go of the ether because it proves the flat earth? That's the dumbest, most convoluted train of thought that I've ever heard. Like,
yeah, that's
everything else proves the earth is flat. You don't need a fictional ether to prove the earth is flat. It's ridiculous.
Well, that is the argument he's trying to make, though.
They measured movement in the sky.
Did they, though? Or did they just measure what appeared to be movement because it's just lights that they can't prove are actual things in literal locations? So all they got is apparent movement. That is all. It's all apparent. Nothing is actual. They don't even know what it is that they're measuring. Nobody.
Right. What they measured what again? They measured movement in what?
The deviation of a device.
Yeah, they measured two different speeds, higher and lower in the air. There was two different measurements.
So light has a speed.
The mechanical device works differently with altitude. That's it. That's literally what they go by.
Yes,
right,
John,
well,
they're saying that light doesn't have a speed, but they're measuring the speed. You know what I mean?
Yes, it arrives instantaneous, but still that instantaneity can have a different speed, don't you know?
Well, yeah, and there's also the measurement itself.
It's not
What are
something
they?
you continue with, yeah.
Right. Oh, true. But yeah, it's dumb. But the measurement itself is of what?
Measurement itself? What?
What are you measuring to claim there is a speed? Is it a diffraction pattern?
No?
Well, it's interferometry, John. So yeah, it's a registration.
Yeah, it's the
I mean, that's what it's interferometry. That's what it is.
It's the response of a device to a man-made process.
And now they use ring laser gyros, which is interferometry, on aircraft. But aircraft don't have to adjust for all these movements that they're claiming is happening.
Right. But the thing is, with a diffraction pattern, so you're measuring the discrete points of interaction and claiming that the change in the pattern is somehow changing the speed, right?
They're changing the presuppositions that they think are there because they presuppose it. That's what all it is. I blame ballers. I mean, if it weren't for ballers, presupposition wouldn't have become universally accepted as a thing that you can do. Like, ball religion has normalized circular reasoning, and it's horrendous.
If interferometers did what they're claiming that they are doing with different altitudes, then how would they work within airplanes? How would any of this work? See, what they're claiming to measure, they just have a claimed measurement of something. They don't even know what that is. They're just using any vague circumstance that they can get a hold of and call it ether. Any vagueness they can get a hold of.
A device works differently, right? Just like how time has a different speed when you go high up using some clock thing. So it's like, oh, look, the device works differently. That means that this substance that we presuppose is causing that exists.
Yeah, it's complete nonsense. It's like the cesium clocks. It's like the whole general relativity cesium clocks claim.
Yeah, exactly. What I meant.
Yeah, cesium clocks, they measure time moving faster, I think, as you rise up, right? But it's not noticeable by anybody who is in an airplane or who can travel a bit higher, like a fighter jet, because it's only so minuscule, it's not noticeable at all. But you'd notice it if you went to space. You know what I'm saying? It's another one of those things. It's complete and utter nonsense. It's vague. You know what I mean? With that, they're measuring a concept. What are they measuring with? What are they claiming to measure? They're measuring a concept with cesium clocks. So what are they claiming to measure? The Etherians, what are they claiming to be measuring with interferometer? Are they measuring ether?
Well, the cesium clock, they're basically claiming to measure an alteration of the function of entropy based on height. Even though, is that really the case? Or if you have a clock functioning at a very specific height continually for a very long time, it turns out it runs exactly the same. And it is actually the ascension or the subjecting the whole device to lowering pressure that causes a deviation. Like, this has not been established at all. Like, what is actually happening?
But if there is a change in the diffraction pattern with altitude, you still need the photons for the or the discrete points of interaction, because photons trigger them for some reason. Even that is the discrete point of interaction of light. So you still need that to get the diffraction pattern. What does it matter if that diffraction pattern changes with altitude? Where do you get ether from any of that?
Well, if there's something out there and we can't directly explain it, well, that must mean that ether explains it, right? So any new thing that can't just immediately be explained with every piece of knowledge that is about it out there, that is open to speculation, well, then that must mean ether. That's how it works.
That is like the best definition of an argument from ignorance I've ever heard in my life. That's like, just, yeah.
Self-fulfilling prophecy. There's something. It must be this. So anything that's not explained yet must be caused by that something.
That's why we need to divorce ourselves from these people. We need to just leave them alone.
We don't have to. They've already excommunicated us, remember? That was stated as excommunication.
We're still reviewing them, though.
Yeah, that's.
But
we're,
if
not
you-
we're not excommunicating
Sorry.
them. They're saying they're excommunicating us, but then, only 10 minutes ago, Brian's pointing out how he can't get a word in edgeways because Witsit wants to bitch about me and QE.
That's correct.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But
So
technically, we were never part of them.
So excommunication means echo chamber, then.
I wanted to say, technically, we were never part of them. Never, ever, ever part of them.
Well, they thought that we were going to be a part of them, and then we declined. Nathan, primarily.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that the other day. That was a major event in Flat Earth, if you think about it. That was the freaking turning point right there when Nathan stood his ground.
Yeah,
And
Nathan
but that's the first
trying
time
to
you could also
distinguish
see
himself.
what happened. Sorry, that's the first time also that you could start to see who the globe or the globe busters people actually were, what they were like. Once it's not just all friendly. That's the first time you could start to see it.
But Nathan didn't go there to distinguish himself from them. He was trying to help.
Yeah, we know
You know?
that. We know that. But it turned out to be that was a very important part of this whole genre we find ourselves in.
I get what you mean, Neil, but you're roboting again. Your connection sucks.
I'm on the road.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it wasn't important to the development of the topic, but yeah, Nathan went there. He didn't go there to try to distinguish himself from them. He thought he was, in a community at the time, and he thought he was helping. And he did it with the best of intentions, and they burned him.
Yeah, and
He
that's
thought he was helping a mate.
well, that's just when things were revealed as they really were. Before that
No,
time, I also
no.
thought like, oh yeah, globebusters, they're doing their own thing, but like they're our allies. That's what I thought. And after that moment, it was like, wow, these guys, they're gatekeepers. They're not allies at all. They're gatekeepers.
That was like, well, for me, that was like, that's the end of Globe Busters for me. I know where I'm setting my train up.
And on that jolly note, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. Remember, hashtag measured flat earth. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.